Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Thursday edition of On the Hill, and yes, we will be joining you guys a little bit late from our normal time, 1 to 2 each and every day, as we're going through fall camp and trying to get as much coverage and bring you as much information. And unfortunately, sometimes the press conferences run over a little bit, which hence we're going to be starting a little bit later. But tomorrow, we'll be here from 1 to 2 p.m. at our regular scheduled hour with we have a lot of guests. Possibly I'll have Scotty Borland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, possibly Otis Kirk, much more on tomorrow's. What is tomorrow, Demetrius? Everybody, it's a special Friday. What do we call that show? It's the A, I believe. So we're going to start our 4th year of the A each and every Friday. And I'm really looking forward to bringing you guys a lot of information this year. But we had a chance to get out to practice once again today. And I'm telling you, just continue to be impressed with the urgency and the communication is what I'm starting to see. I see a lot of communication both on the offensive side and on the defensive side. I saw something today during one of the defensive tackle drills. Sosa again was standing off in the back of the line. And freshman, I believe it was Marcus Miller, was needing a little extra technique that Coach Ingram was going over with the entire defensive line. And just to see the senior step up and take the leadership role and take Bubba Miller under his wing and mentor him so that he can possibly, if called upon to get on the field, he knows some of the techniques that Sosa's been doing for 3 or 4 years. And I see that going on a lot throughout this team. I see cornerbacks. I see Pac-Man McClellan talking with Greg Brooks, talking with Devin Bush. I see Buston talking with those two guys, Malik Chavis, Ladarius Bishop. I see Cameron Curl going over things with Jalen Catalon, Joe Fouché, Miles Mason. There's just a lot of communication offensively. You can see the tight ends talking with Hudson. You can see the wide receivers. Jordan's talking with Traylon, TQ, Shamar. Running backs, Devois, Raheem. They're talking with Monte Spivey. So it's Chase Hayden. So it's, quarterback. It's just the maturity of this football team and urgency. And just, Demetrius, I'm telling you, week in, week out, day in, day out, you continue to see the bounce. And this defense is really starting to become a turnover machine. But we're going to step away. We got more audio. We caught up with senior linebacker Scooter Harris. And who do we have? Oh, I'm sorry. My producer always gets this right. I'm telling you, he's the best in the business. Demetrius tells me we have junior wide receiver Davion Warren. And here's what DW had to say.
You're not there all day. Who made plays today? Offensively? Blake Kern, Jack Lindsey, Jimmy Stoudemire, Kendall Catalon. We had Traylon Smith, running back, TJ Hammonds. And we had on my side of the field would be Deion Stewart and Mike Woods. Me. And, Ben Hickson, a little run. Him and Starker. Starker, he was running. I don't think he was going very fast. But, he was getting there.
What have been your thoughts on those quarterbacks so far? I mean, how do you think that battle's going?
That battle is going good. It's interesting to see two people battle. Like, we battle in receiver room, but to see it from a different position, like that is amazing. Like you see them battle, but you also see them critique each other, which is a good thing, which means they know how to battle, but also know how to help each other out.
We're talking to Deion yesterday. He said that the receivers this year kind of have a different sense of urgency. Do you feel that same way?
Yes, we have a sense of urgency. Just you get to a point where you have something to prove, and people underestimate you as one of the least receiver close to the SEC. You have to take practice every day, like one rep at a time. You have to give it your best.
Any particular young guys stuck out today or through fall camp for you?
All the young guys have stuck out to this week since the first day of fall camp. Traylon Burks, J.D. White, TQ Jackson, and they have all stuck out there. It's been real interesting watching them guys study, work, and also us bringing them along.
You notice a different tempo or more reps, the way y'all split the fields up and, have two different groups running like that?
Yeah, the way we split the field up is just for that purpose, so we can get more tempo and that the young guys can go without having to sit there and wait and just watch. We want people to act, we want them to learn, and it's better to learn if we just split up reps and equal reps.
Just straight up completion percentage through this camp versus last year, this amount of days. Where do you think y'all stand?
Man, it's amazing. We are a lot better as a group collectively. It's been good, and we just got to take little steps further. That's the thing. We got to keep pushing each day, each practice, everything we do, including meetings.
You scored yesterday on was it bubble screen? Can you talk about the play?
The play, really, the play was pretty good. It was designed. I think I had Nick on the field at the time. A little bubble screen, block the man over, and catch it, just make a man miss and just get down the sideline. That's what it is, man. In this league, it's just about making plays after the catch. You're not always going to get the big launch, big play like that. So it's just taking little stuff and just taking them a long way.
Any turnovers?
Welcome back here. We're live here on KDSJ 479. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins. OTH comes to you each and every day. When we're in our normal schedule, which will be taking place here in about a week or so, we'll be back on Monday through Friday. And make a note, every Monday we'll have a 30-minute show to recap the past weekend's ball game and talk about our availability with all the offensive and defensive coordinator, Chavis Craddock, and head coach Chad Morris will be the 30-minute show that we put together each and every Monday. So just make a note of that. The other days, Tuesday through Friday, will be on our duration, our normal time, 1 to 2 p.m. So all those notes, make a note for those that's watching. That's how the show will be playing out, and probably for the remainder of fall camp, we'll be coming in a little bit late. But like I said, we got to bring you the stories. I mean, what better way? That's just how we do it at OTH. We bring you SEC and, like we say, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Demetrius 23 days away. 23 days away. And I'm coming to find out, Mateus Soli is running with the second team defensive group. Hence, he's going to be able to get out and play. And I just continue to be amazed at this young man's ability to grasp this defensive scheme. And he's not even taken one game rep. But I think, when you talk about kids, Demetrius, coming in the fall, in the spring, and being able to go through spring ball, giving up that last year of high school, that speaks very, very good volumes. And I think it gives those kids a big time advantage to understand, what the demands of fall camp will be like.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. I think what benefits Mateus Soli is he's already physically gifted. So the transition from high school wasn't a physical thing; it was more so a mental thing. And I think when your dad is a former pro and a former Hall, I think you already mentally know what to expect coming to that collegiate thing. So I'm really excited. You've been really revving about him all morning, talking about he's special. I know you've been talking about his first step. But I really have a feeling by the time of by the end of his career, he's going to be a linebacker. I know you don't agree with me. I know I've been trying to throw it out there, but I really think by the end of his career, he's going to have such a special ability that he can interchange from a hybrid defensive end to a stand-up linebacker.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the defensive line, the job that Coach King was doing with those DTs, and then the defensive ends led by Steve Caldwell. If you're a Razorback fan and you look at that position, you have to feel good about the future going forward with so much youth, but still a lot of potential talent there that can play on Sundays. I mean, I know Coach Morris has to be excited, Coach Chavis, and like I said, it's a very young team. I mean, there's going to have to be quite a few of these 52 underclassmen that are going to have to contribute with it being such a small senior group. But that senior group, it's maybe small in stature, but not small in leadership qualities. You lead by example, and a lot of those guys do that. They lead by example. They go out and they play the game the right way, and it has become contagious. And freshmen have just followed in and added more urgency to this team. And you got those guys, those middle guys, those sophomores and juniors that are sitting right there amongst all this leadership and this eagerness to play. I mean, Demetrius, you can't help but use that moniker of iron sharpening iron, and seeing this team develop both in the weight room and continue to build that culture on the football field.
Definitely. And I think that was something Chad Morris really, 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 really emphasized on this offseason. He said, I want to make everybody in the room uncomfortable. I want them to know that they have to come in every day willing to work. And I think that mindset has spread. That's what a lot of the younger guys that did get to see the Bielema era and now the Chad Morris era, they're talking about the competition, how guys can't relax. Even guys like Sosa Dean, you talking about Big Bubba. Sosa have one bad day or two bad days.
Right.
It's a guy right and ready, just as physically gifted as you to come in for your position. So I think, again, it's going to add an extra edge to the University of Arkansas.
I know as reported injury on the injury front, John Marshall kind of banged up a little ankle, but seemed to be okay as he made his way to player availability to the media today. Also, too, Eric Gregory, true freshman out of the Memphis area by way of IMG, will be out 3 weeks, I believe, with a high ankle sprain. So that's a freshman that's going to have to be on the shelf for a couple of weeks. But, it's another guy that had a great camp, came in the spring as Mateus Soli and went through the spring ball and was making his way onto that 2 or 3 deep. I know Arkansas is wanting to play about 8-9 defensive tackles, which when you can do that, and like I said, it's all about building depth in this conference. And Arkansas is starting to get the numbers. We go back several years ago, I believe, in the latter part of the Bielema era, and they were very, very thin at the defensive and offensive lines. Last year, you continue to say 8 offensive linemen. Now you're up to 15. I see at least 7, 8 to 9 defensive tackles, at least 6 to 8 defensive ends that can play, linebackers. They're starting to build a lot of depth, and that's something I think Arkansas had not been able to do under Brett Bielema, and it showed. I mean, the speed has gotten better, Demetrius, on this football team. I can tell, and even more so at the wide receiver spot. Everybody seems to run that 4.4 faster. Jordan Jones is still yet the fastest on the football team, but there's been a major speed infusion in this football team, and it's really good to see because over the years covering this team, it never stood out to me or jumped out to me just how much of a lack of speed this team had. Demetrius, I saw it. It really came out last year versus Alabama, and really the Vanderbilt game is when you absolutely knew that this team had to get faster, and all the things that Chad was saying about either you have speed or chasing speed came to fruition. From the media standpoint.
I think the type of football that Bielema tried to play in the scheme that he was running didn't cause for elite speed. I'm not saying he didn't have guys that did have this elite speed, because when you look back at guys like Alex Collins, which is another guy we can probably, Jonathan Williams, there were guys that had exceptional speed, but I think it was more of a space and pace kind of thing. We're gonna get one-on-one, space you out, space our receivers out, get one-on-one with our hogs in the trenches, and run and pound you. So I think just from a recruiting standpoint, again, the offense and the defense that we were running required for different type of players. But yes, I do see a big difference in the speed and just sideline to sideline speed, especially on defense. I think now, even with Scooter, you're seeing guys kind of slim down and get those leaner, athletic bodies instead of those big bulky bodies, and I think that's really giving them the ability to really be flexible and interchange what they're doing.
Well, we're going to step away, get us a real 2 or 3 minute break, and pay a few bills, as this would not be possible without our sponsors. Real quick, Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Corey Beck's Custom Painting. You need it to look good. Call Corey Beck Custom Painting, and he'll definitely have you looking just like he does. Done a great job with our studio. And Locomotion. It's located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall. We'll be back in a minute with much, much more. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Your job was to come out and fly around the quarterback. Good job the next few.
I had the first 2 days to get back to it.
It was hot yesterday, so we had to get used to that. But I think it's been good. I don't think we slowed down. I think we're playing how we're supposed to be.
You know what the takeaway count was today?
4, if I'm not mistaken. We got them all in the second half. I'm not sure exactly when, but I know we got 2 on the first unit, but I don't know exactly when. I think they got another one on the other side.
Who got takeaways, you know?
Scooter caught a pick. It was some fumbles. I can't remember exactly.
If that's right.
He's got 3 picks now.
Scooter leading the picks on the team right now.
Who did you
Yeah.
pick off today?
Nick,
Yeah. What happened on the play?
I can't remember. I just looked back and it was a pick.
Talk about the Saturday scrimmage, just what you're expecting, the first big scrimmage at camp.
Our coaches want to see, we put in a lot of stuff, and our coaches want to see us execute the things that we've been putting in. Like, we're trying to make minimum mistakes.
Does the fact that you guys are getting several turnovers a day, does it worry you for the other side of the ball?
No, I think we're all just getting each other better. I mean, we all need it. They need it to get better. We all need to get better. I don't think it works.
You were fun actually to our
mean, I guess that you dropped a lot of weight, and McTellen has added a lot of weight. Like you guys went 40 pounds.
Yeah, I know. I lost 30. He gained 30. I think that's where it's supposed to be the whole time. I was a little big.
How's he moving over there next to you?
He's just honestly. I don't see a difference in his speed. He's moving faster than me. Honestly, I think he's going the right way.
People have questions about the offensive tackles. The guys that you go up against, what are their strengths?
I mean, all those guys are good. I don't think. I mean, it was a big loss losing Noah. That was a huge loss, but I think all the guys I think we'll be okay.
Who do you go up against the most?
Dalton Wagner. I go up against. That's the only person I go up against. And I think he's gonna. He gets better every day. He gets me better, and I get him better every day.
You've always talked about your hunger to succeed. Now you're out there, preseason camp is getting close. So just talk about how hungry you are this month.
I just want to do whatever I got to do to make this team a better football team, make this defense a better defense. That's all I want to do. And whatever that is, I'll do it.
Any young guys standing out to you?
Catalan. Catalan is doing real good. Greg Brooks is doing real good. I like Soli a lot. That's all I can think of off the top of my head that stand out to me.
You said you like Soli a lot. What do you think he's going to continue to work on?
Honestly, Soli is what you look for in a game. He's very twitchy. He's big. He's a big dude. He's fast. Soli just got to keep getting better every day. As long as Soli keeps coming and get better like he does, I don't see Soli's going to be one of the best defensive ends come through this, in my opinion.
Welcome back. This is our Thursday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio as we come to you here on KDSJ 479. And coming back in, we let you hear audio from today's player media availability following day 6 of Razorback Fall Camp. Senior defensive end Dorian Gerald. And Demetrius, this was a guy that you and I had high expectations for last year, being as highly rated as he was. I believe he's rated the number 1 JUCO defensive end, number 4 JUCO player overall, and just never felt like Dorian lived up or even showed flashes of what Coach Chavis and that defensive staff was hoping he would bring in year 1. But talking to him today and just seeing the way his body's transformed, I mean, this is a guy that's dropped 23 pounds from last season to this season, and he does look a lot lighter on his feet. It seems like he has a better grasp of what will be expected from him this upcoming senior campaign, and that's real big. I mean, when you can get Dorian, and how big to me, I want to pose that question to you, Dorian Gerald. How big is it that he has a pretty good, productive senior year for this defense, in your opinion?
At that defensive end position, I think it's all on Dorian Gerald. It goes back to what we were talking about the previous segment about Chad going to get guys that can keep you competitive and ready to take your spot. So I'm not going to say we don't need Dorian Gerald, but I will say that it's going to be on to him to stay on the field, and it's going to be on him to do what he has to do because of course he is the number 1 right now. But when you have these hungry freshmen eager to get on the field and already mentally saying, "I think I'm better than you,"
right.
That's a lot of pressure. So right. I think he can be a help because he's a senior. He has experience. I don't think he was underrated. I think you were just telling me off air how last year he was just thrown into practice. He hadn't even understood the playbook for those 3 days. He just kind of threw himself in there. Right. And it kind of showed because last year that was something that I really spoke about Dorian Gerald, that he just looked out of shape. He looked like he hadn't did the preseason work. So when the games kind of came, he looked tired after 2 or 3 reps, and you could kind of see it, and his body showed. So I think this year, I think he more so has to prove something to himself. I think he has to reach those standards that people have set for him, right. and not only people set for him, the standards he set for himself.
Yeah, and I think, with him being a senior, understanding that this is the last go-around, we heard it from Sosa, we heard it from Dijon, we heard it from Devois. There is no next year for this senior group. I mean, some of them will move on to the NFL, some, will move out into the real world and become great citizens, great husbands, fathers, son-in-laws, brothers. Those are all very important, but this football team and this senior group of football players have shown to me that they're going to do everything in their power to get to a bowl game. I do think that this team goes bowling. To what degree of a bowl they attain, I'm not sure, but I do think that they're going to win the 6 games to become bowl eligible. Don't think they're going to lose a non-conference game. And in my opinion, I'm picking them. I believe 3 and 4 in the SEC. I think they're going to beat a couple teams or a team that they're not supposed to beat. But when you also think about it, that with that schedule being said, Arkansas would be underdogs versus absolutely. When you think about it, they're going to be an underdog at versus Alabama. They're going to be an underdog against LSU, and they're probably going to be an underdog when they take that trip down to Jerry's World. Those will be the 3 games that they're going to be underdogs in. Probably Demetrius probably an underdog versus Auburn, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I'll say a few more teams because, as you know, they must be an underdog in all the games because they were picked last in the SEC.
Right.
So
right.
I think that speaks for itself. I think that speaks for itself as far as how the league views them and how people think they're going to be matched up against these other SEC teams.
Great point. Well, I mean, I think and this team when I've been around them and I've asked that question, how do you guys accept or embrace the underdog role? You can see a little surprising smile from most of the guys on that football team. They feel like they're in position to shock some people, and I really agree. And I've said it before also that I think that secondary at Arkansas is going to be one of the better secondaries in the SEC and possibly in the country. I think, like I said, takeaways. I see this team defensively getting a lot of takeaways, which is something I think you have to do to be a great defense. You got to create opportunities for your offense. And I think this team's going to be able to do that. Last time I've seen a defense be able to create the turnovers to this level in fall camp was that 2010 team with Jerry and that defensive group.
I don't know. That one where we had Darius Philon, Trey Flowers. I mean, that was a turnover squad. I want to say
the 2014.
They were leading. They were maybe one of the top turnover teams in like the country that year.
That's a great point.
So I mean, again, it starts with that defensive line because even when you go through and look at that team, especially on the back end and even at the linebacker position, we didn't have any touted guys on that back end.
Speaking of linebacker, Giovanni LaFrance will be the surprise linebacker here at the University of Arkansas this year. I just love the way this young man is moving, and it just feels like it's his time. He's paid his dues.
I'm going to say bro.
Number 20 has sat and watched a lot of linebackers play football for the last 2 years. I know he redshirted his first year. Last year came in. This is a time I think Giovanni has to step forward and kind of take some of that pressure off Scooter and Bumper Pool and Grant Morgan and Hudson, Hayden Henry and those guys. You got to come in and add more depth. Like I said, we keep talking about it, Demetrius. This is a depth league in the SEC. And in particular, you have to have a lot of numbers to play very, very solid SEC defense.
I agree. With that surprise linebacker, I think I'm gonna have to go a Pluck. I think when you look at the linebacker position, Pluck is probably going to be the most diverse player at the linebacker position. Having played nickel, having played some perimeter corner, I just think he's just going to add a different edge to what they can do schematic wise. I don't necessarily know what Chief has because when I asked the question at Media Day with Chief, I said, Chief, are you going to try to get exotic with some different type of blitzes or do something different scheme wise? And he looked at me and he told me, he looked at me point blank and said, no, we're going to play simple football. And I think one-on-one matchups, Pluck is going to have a mismatch. Even if he's guarding running backs, even if he's guarding receivers, I just feel that Pluck is going to have that potential to make a lot of big plays and be in position to really be one of those guys that have a high turnover ratio on that defense.
I mean, I told you he could be a guy. He's moved and he's had a great fall camp. I mean, I haven't been able to see any guys that haven't lived up to the fall camp expectations. Maybe a few here or there, but the guys that have done that, I have no doubt will step up and perform at a high level, a championship winning level once we get into games on Saturdays. But for the most part, it's been a really smooth, urgent, a very productive fall camp for the University of Arkansas Razorback football program. I know each and every time Chad comes into availability to meet us here in the media, he has nothing but great things to say. Jalen Catalon, still yet. Demetrius was one of the last signees, was one of the big-time signees that Arkansas recruited for the duration of last year's recruiting cycle and was able to reel him in and get that signature. This was a guy that was really, he's going to be special. And from all intents and purposes, from what I'm seeing, came back off of his knee injury that he had, I believe, second game of the year versus Jinx out of Oklahoma. Doesn't show any signs, Demetrius, of slowing down. His ability to play the ball is very uncanny. I hadn't seen that in a while. It goes back to Ken Hamlin, maybe Greg Lasker, and Steve Atwater had those type of instincts. Oh, guys that I've covered here at the University of Arkansas. Jalen has that. He has that type of ball awareness.
I'm glad you mentioned Steve Atwater because if I can remember, he came to the University of Arkansas actually recruited as a running back.
As a quarterback, absolutely.
As a quarterback. Okay, that even makes my point more valid. If you look at Jalen Catalon, he was a quarterback in high school.
Right.
He played the quarterback position.
As did Scooter Harris.
And to me, the best back end guys, even when you're talking safety, are always guys that have played quarterback.
Right.
They know the tendencies of a quarterback. They know when a quarterback's trying to look one way and make you bite one way and throw the ball to the opposite side of the field. So I think Jordan Catalon has not only the instincts of a defensive player, but the instincts of a quarterback. He thinks like a quarterback. Right. So I think that aids him in putting him in positions a normal player that has never played the quarterback position wouldn't put themselves in. And I think he understands how to split the field because as a safety, you have to know how to split the difference of the field. I think that's what really is going to make him an amazing player for future to come.
And then, I would be remiss to mention junior safety Cameron Curl, a young man that started as his freshman career as a cornerback, was moved to safety last year, had some trouble adapting early during the season, but was able to get his feet underneath him. I mean, from what I've seen from this junior, nothing but leadership. He's the elder statesman back there, and from what I've seen, he's carried himself, and he's led this group of secondary to the point that their confidence level's up. Just constantly see Cameron always in the ears of the Catalans and Miles Mason and Joe Fouché. I mean, these are three guys, two sophomores and a true freshman. And he's been that father. He's been that granddaddy back there in the secondary with a lot of communication, getting all of the guys on defense in their right positions to attack properly, the way Coach Chavis and that defense staff has a scheme each and every time out. And that's the thing I've seen about him. I always talked about it, and I'm real big on being solid up the middle. And I think when you look at T.J. Smith, look at Sosa Again, you've got Dejon Harris, probably Morgan will get that second inside linebacker. Then you're sitting back there with Cameron Curl. That's a lot of experience up the middle of your defense, where I think all great defenses, I'm a firm believer of that, and Demetrius has heard me say this for years, all of the great defenses, you look at them, very solid up the middle. Why is Alabama so good? Defensive tackles, linebackers, and they've always got two or three safeties that are going to play the ball and play it at a high level. Auburn's the same way. Clemson, the same way. Defensive tackles, linebackers, safety. So when you're real solid up the middle, and I think this team is, for the first time in many, many years, they're solid up the middle. I think you're going to see dividends, and it's going to come in the form of fumble recoveries and turnovers, because the speed on the defense, Demetri, it has gotten – in the last two classes that Chad brought in, the 18 and 19 guys, there's definitely been a definite infusion of speed, and that's what you got to have, and that's what Charlie, he mentioned it. You have it or you're chasing it, and he's finally starting to attract some of that on the defense side of the football.
I'm really eager to see these guys really go against a formidable opponent. I know that first game won't really be a telltale sign of what Arkansas really is or truly is, but I'm really ready to see how Chad, and not only Chad, the team performs in adversity, because that's going to be the moment where we find out what this Arkansas team is about. Because it wasn't that we were bad last year. It was that we didn't know how to play after we got punched in the mouth. And that's what the one thing, because on paper, if you look at Arkansas on paper right now, Arkansas looks great.
Right.
I don't care what nobody say. If you go back and actually look at the recruits that Arkansas brought in and the pieces that's still here, from quarterback to running back, offensive line might be a little shaky, but on the defensive side, everybody pretty much gives a check mark as far as, you can be a decent player in the SEC. So then it boils down to coaching and how the team reacts under adversity. And that's really where I'm at with this team right now. Body-wise, yes, they all passed the eye test. Yes, the football team looks a lot better. Yes, they do look in shape. Yes, they do have a lot more cohesion. But I think what makes teams in the SEC really, really, really special are the guys that, one, coaches know how to coach in the game, that know how to make great game time decisions, and two, a team that can get punched in the mouth and know how to fight back. So those are the two things that, outside of camp, that I'm really looking forward to, because as far as camp thus far, I'm really satisfied. I'm really happy. I really see the direction Chad's trying to take the team.
Right.
But those are going to be the two telltale signs to see, okay, is this thing going to work long term? Because, Pat, we talked yesterday, and we went through that schedule, and we had to look at each other twice like, man, some things are really going to have to go in Arkansas' favor this year for next year to be a great year. And I think that's going to be a lot of pressure on Chad.
Well, that's going to wrap our show up today. We'll be back tomorrow with much, much more. Now, it's the first edition of the Fall A. We're going to have much, much more. We're going to have Scotty Borland of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, possibly Otis Kirk. Much information. We'll talk all Arkansas Razorback football. You can call in tomorrow. We'll have an open line talk. I believe at the 1:15 hour. Real quick, Demetrius has one more statement.
Yeah, we had one question from a long-time listener, Mr. Roy, so I had to just stop before we go because he's a guy that tunes in every day. So when he drops a question at the end of the show, I don't mind extending a little bit over just to address his question. But right. Mr. Roy said, hopefully you guys will answer this. He says, if Arkansas goes 2-10 again with the talent that we have, how much falls on the coach?
I believe all. I think it's going to be 50-50. I'm one of those type of people. It takes the players and the coaches to come up with that. It's never one outweighing the other. It takes effort from both parties to come up with a 2-10 record. There has to be improvements, and it has to be just one team, one goal. And I think that's what this team is. Don't think they go 2-10. I have penciled this team in. I have them fourth or fifth in the SEC West. I have them in a bowl game. I see this team possibly getting to that 7-win mark. Outside of Alabama, outside of LSU, they're going to be, and probably Auburn or Texas A&M, they should be favored. But a lot's going to come down to that Ole Miss game. If Arkansas can win the opener, Portland State, you kind of hope that you say that you expect them to win that. But go to Oxford and face a new offensive scheme under Rich Rodriguez, a former head coach at Arizona, going to be in his first year running that Ole Miss offense. If Arkansas can go down to the Grove and come out with a win, you see what happens with these football teams that go in and get early wins here at Arkansas. The confidence level, I think, when they come back, will just be out, at a level that hadn't been, and then you start to build more momentum. And I think that they're going to lean on depth, experience, and an urgency that I see with this football team. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to covering the 2019 version of the Arkansas Razorbacks because I think there's going to be some intriguing storylines, both with seniors, possibly some juniors. I know the freshman class are going to have one or two guys that will jump out at you. I can see a couple of freshman All-Americans. I think Mateus Soli, I've said it and I'll continue to say it, he's going to be a big-time story for this defense. This guy here, number 11, when you go to the football field, I want you to watch his burst and just the way he uses his hands and the way he can run sideline to sideline. This is something that you see in – that's what they look like in the SEC. We had a chance to talk to Tori and Gerald. Each and every defensive end or defensive tackle, when you talk about freshmen that have stood out, Mateus Soli, his name continues to, come to the forefront. And like I said, 22 and a half sacks. You've heard me say that before. I don't care what level of football you're playing in. It could be powder puff. If you have 22 sacks in the highest classification, he's playing 6A football, Demetrius. He was playing 6A, not 3A, 4A, 2A. He was doing it at the highest level against guys on the opposite side of the ball that he's going to play in the SEC, or he may watch in the ACC or Big Ten or Pac-12. These were Power 5 high school programs and kids that he was going up against night in and night out and held his own. And I think that's going to be no different. I just feel this kid, I've said it again, I've seen steps at the defensive end. Wayne Martin comes to mind. Billy Ray Smith comes to mind. And Mateus Soli has that type of quick twitch. I only see this guy here for 3 years, Demetrius, and I don't think we'll see number 11 in Fayetteville come his senior year. He's that special, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short, but to answer Mr. Roy's question as far as how much falls on Chad Morris, I'm going to say 70-30 because I feel like if not now, when? Because next year is going to be harder than this year. So I feel if Chad doesn't make somewhat of an increase, at least to that 5 to 6 games, man, it's only getting tougher because now the SEC is starting to schedule these outside Power 5 conference games now. They're no longer playing those kind of cream puff games anymore because everybody's trying to build this resume to get into the college football playoffs. So again, if it's going to be 70-30 if the team does not pan out and we have a bad season, because I think as far as the players taking the time to get to know one another, to really put the work in, to be on time, to understand this thing that we're talking about everything, I think the players have finally bought into the point where all the coaches have to do is coach a decent game.
Right.
Coach a decent game. Call smart offensive plays and feed the guys that are playmakers. Don't try to do anything fancy. Don't try to this is my favorite play over here. Do what works and stick to what works. And I think if we do that, we're gonna have we're at least going bowling. We're at least minimum going bowling.
I think, and the reason I'm so excited offensively is the skill position talent that they have this particular year. I hadn't seen this much speed and skill at the tight end, running back, and wide receiver, and even quarterback. At one particular time, they're 3 and 4 deep at the running back, 3 and 4 deep at the wide receiver, 3 and 4 deep at the tight end position. They're at least 2, possibly 3 deep if they decide to throw KJ in there at the quarterback. This team has just built depth, and I think it's more experience. The more that these kids get out on the football field and go through those Saturday experience, like I said, make a note. I mean, I know the schedule's going to get tougher, but 52 underclassmen and multiple good football players in that class that Chad's brought in. I think the last class that Brett Bielema had a few guys that are going to mature and become really good football players. But for the most part, it's the wide receivers. You play the schedule that you do, but you're going to come back with a very experienced football team. But, we still got this year to go, and I think it's going to be some really, really exciting times for the Razorback fan base. But we want to wrap this up and give a quick shout out before we get out of here to our sponsors that make this all possible each and every day that we can bring to you in its fullest entirety. And tomorrow we will be back from 1 to 2 p.m.